Well, what's up, Facebook family? Uh, it's good to be here. The bishop and I, I always got to say it, brother, because it's always true.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good to be in your presence, to have an opportunity to talk with you about issues that you and I talk about on a regular basis, and just try to express our thoughts out loud. And so it's always good. You're always an encouragement to me. I always say, like the Apostle Paul, when he was talking to the church, every time he thinks of him, he prays for him and thanks God for him. And that's how I feel about you. So it's definitely good to be here. Which is a good way for us to segue right into the conversation that we want to have today, regarding changing the narrative. And so let me get to my notes real quick so we can stay on topic.
But just let me go and say, yeah, it's good to be back on live with you. Also, I know we hold each other's feet to the fire.
Affirmative, that's real.
And we're real with each other.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing, that I know if you say something to me, I can accept it and I can believe it.
Right.
And
sure.
And a lot of times, it's people frame, because we're talking about narratives today, frame things certain ways, and you have to like dig into it and get all the facts and all that.
Right.
But I trust you, and when you say something, it's okay. Okay, I hear it.
Mm.
Unless I have other facts and say, well, I don't know, man.
And that happens. And that
Exactly,
happens.
exactly.
And that happens.
Exactly.
And that's good. No, I appreciate that, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of going along with that too, one of the first things that I put on my notes is that we as a people, as Black people, have to stop being lazy listeners.
Mm-hmm.
We are, like, in a lot of ways, lazy listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've been blamed in times past for being emotional and all. But I think in a lot of ways that is true.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a lot of ways there's something very emotional, even in our styles of worship and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's not bad.
Right.
It's not bad, but emotions aren't always facts.
Right.
And sometimes a lack of facts causes a particular emotion
Exactly.
that ends up being wrong. And so I
Exactly.
think over time, we've been so used to things happening a particular way in our community and against us that it's natural to just have a sense of anger and a sense of hatred towards what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
That turns into a hatred towards the people who are doing whatever is happening.
Right.
So, but one of the things I think, and this is something I really, really appreciate about you,
Mm-hmm.
and I say this to you often, and if not, I need to probably say it more, but is you definitely will dig for facts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
one of the things people don't know is that before we do our show during the week, we have a form that we fill out
Right.
about what we're going to talk about,
Right.
and just jot some notes down. And brother, I wish I could show these cats some of the notes that you take and put in here. And so what they see on Facebook is a very condensed
Right.
version of what we're going to talk about,
Exactly.
without all the extemporary notes.
Exactly.
Brother, you take what they call in an academic setting copious notes, and you research facts. And if people listen to you
Mm-hmm.
when you talk,
Mm-hmm.
when they listen, if people actually really listen to you, some people hear you,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the respect that they have
Mm-hmm.
for you, they just
Mm-hmm.
take on what you say,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if they would listen to what you're saying, they would see how you dig
Mm-hmm.
for information.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Yeah.
statistics, you have real data from past and present. You've thought about how it works today,
Mm-hmm.
how it worked. I mean,
Mhm.
you're a real thinker, and I've always appreciated that about you. And I just wish that we would do a little bit more of that, a little bit more of framing narratives for ourselves, realizing when they're putting a narrative in the community and we don't respond emotionally and get angry and then lose sight
Mm-hmm.
of what we're supposed to be doing.
Right. And absolutely, man. And same likewise with you, man. And that's what, because you always challenge me to think, and really why you see all those copious notes or whatever, because I know you're going to come at me. And you guys said, okay, let me silence him now so he can't come and say anything. I've done the research. Here's a fact. Go look at it. Because I know, you're like you're the same way, very studious. And and research, and you question things. You know, you don't just look at things and accept them, but you question them. So I really appreciate that. My thinking is in regards to what we do, and especially trying to get the community to understand, people to get behind certain things, understand certain things a certain way, is, you know, and I've been in a lot of workshops, trainings, different things as far as how to frame a narrative and move the masses and start movements and all these other type of things, and get people excited and moving and going. And a lot of times, you know, people like stories, right? They like to hear people's stories. They like to be moved. They like to hear something that's going to keep them up at night. And that's my weakness in the sense of presenting that side, because I try to focus on what's really happening. And sometimes people just don't tend to look at that when you talk about the stats and the facts, and dig into that and really look and see why we where we are, and so on. So sometimes I try to present stats and facts behind that without really trying to frame a narrative, but framing a narrative to say, look at these facts and what do you think? You know, but at the same time, I have a certain narrative in my mind, you know, of what I'm trying to do. But a lot of times people, like you say, lazy, what did you say? Lazy readers?
Lazy listeners.
Lazy listeners. And a lot of times people just ain't going to, you know, put in the work to do that. And we got to get past that. Just relying on what people tell us. And I think that's on all sides. You know, you know, when you look at President Trump, it's the same way with his followers. You know, whatever he tweets out, that's law, right, to them. And they don't care. They don't do the research. They don't dig in and try to get the facts and so on. So you find that I think it's just human nature to do that. But I think where our problem is Black people, or our challenges, I should say, as Black people, is that the dominant narrative is framed by them, right? White society. So that's where our challenge is because they are
dominant narrative is framed by the dominant culture.
By dominant culture and society, exactly, which is white folks. And so that's where our challenge is, because we got to challenge that and dispel that, because they're always framing things out there. So I think we should look at the facts. We should look at the narrative, and we got to consider both sides. The Bible says that the first to present their case seems
Always
right.
Seems right until you hear the other side.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, whoa, and I find that in everything. I can sit in a trial, and the prosecutor can get up and present a case. So
like,
so, whoa,
he's
man,
in trouble.
Then the defense come like just tear that apart, like, whoa, okay, I didn't see it from there. So, you know, that's just the way it goes. So you do need that no matter what. So a lot of times people hate Fox News, but I love them because you need that side. No, you need that side, because sometimes I'm telling you, I go over there like, okay, thank you. You know, at least you're presenting that side, and because sometimes it's a side that I appreciate. You know, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit later on one of the issues.
Yeah, so let's look at maybe some of the areas that we are negligent in listening, and just since you know you and I are both Christians, and so the first place I want to start is in the church. You know, there's I think a lot of times people go to church, and here's a way that we can tell. One of the clues that people not participate in the way that they should in church, right? In other words, exercising their gift, listening, is people leave church because they say they're not being fed. And part of the responsibility, I mean, when you're a baby, like, that's okay. But if my 19-year-old daughter says she's upset because she's not getting fed, I'm like, who do you think was going to feed you? Like, fed you for the first 2 years or 3 years of your life. You know what I'm saying? Go
to the kitchen and fix you something.
And so what I think happens, though, is that people are used to going to church, and when they stop hearing the things that they need to hear and don't start participating in the conversation, there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of people who walk away from church because the things that are being talked about aren't true.
Right.
And then they don't even know how to decipher, because a lot of the preachers really don't want congregants to think for themselves. Right. Because you as a pastor, if you ended up being the type of person who didn't want the people that attend service on Sabbath with you, if you didn't want them to learn or whatever, or if you were that type of leader, it would make you have to work harder if people were to come and ask you questions and like and then a lot of the people who are speaking in church don't do the work. and they're just regurgitating what was told to them.
Like
and now,
parakeets.
come on. And
parrots.
now, oh man, yeah. And now you can get online and just download sermons. And so a lot of these big churches, what people don't realize is a lot of the narrative in these churches, they all preach in the same seasons. So there's the movie season. If you see some of these churches, they have movie seasons where they gonna see God in the movies. And it's like, get out of here. But that's part of what they do because it makes it easier for you not to have to do the work.
Right.
And what happens is you miss a lot of the nuances. And that's the reason why the church, I think, has been very absent in what's going on in the streets.
Yeah, and I think that at least from my perspective of being a pastor and looking at churches and so on, I think a big part of it problem is that people want to be entertained. You know, I believe a gentleman wrote a book a long time ago, and one of the things he talked about is the Holy Ghost bartender. Fill me up. Just like going to a club or a bar or somewhere, and you just hear some things that make you feel good. You leave, last for a little bit, and then it's gone. But nothing really there to challenge you. People don't want to be. They don't want you getting in their business, right? They don't want to be challenged to change, because change is hard. And that's what church is all about. When you come through those doors, what should be in your mind is repentance, change, and growing, developing, becoming what God wants you to be. But people want to come to church, and like I was telling our church yesterday, is that people want to be you want to be motivated. I'm not a motivational speaker. You want to be motivated, go to a motivational conference or go to YouTube, and they got a lot of motivation. I listen to it sometime. But when you come here, we're going to address the human needs, the human issue, and talking about spiritually. You can get all that other stuff, but what's really important when you talk about your eternal faith and eternal life, or I should say your eternal destiny, it's about your soul spiritually. And so that's deeper than just being entertained and coming to church to be made feel good, to see the praise team, the praise dancers, and all that's fine. We should worship and so on. But at the end of the day, was I challenged to change? At the end of the day, did I get really, because people call getting fed, just getting a lot of knowledge, but the Bible says knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. And so a lot of times people have a lot of knowledge, but don't do anything with it. It just make them proudful because they can quote stuff to you and say things, but you look at their life, it's like, but look at how you're living. So
no, and I think that, and I agree wholeheartedly. And I think one of the things that's difficult too is like, what about giving people the things that they need
Amen.
For their daily lives, right?
Amen.
So a lot of people are used to going to church and feeling really happy when they go. And if you want to see why people go to church, sit your choir down for a couple of weeks and see what happens to attendance. And rarely do you hear people say that they want to go to a particular church because of the word and what's being talked about, right? It's a lot of emotional things. And I think that if people subconsciously see church as one of the most important settings that they gather on a regular basis, then that philosophy will transfer into other areas of their life.
Exactly.
And then we sort of put things in perspective based on how the type of importance that we see. And I think that's which leads into the second point that we talked about, is we talked about Joe Biden, who's running for. We were going to hit on him last week. So we're talking about narratives, and we're talking about controlling a narrative. And one of the things that we see in these Facebook posts, whenever you hit somebody, like a lot of people just hands down love Joe Biden because he was with the first Black president. And so they like, man, we
don't talk about Obama.
But you see what I'm saying? And so nobody's gonna mess with Obama. I'm saying in that, but
I will.
But in this particular setting, this isn't a reflection of Obama.
Exactly. He got to stand on his own merits.
And so Joe Biden is entered into the race, and automatically people just like, we want to go with him because of him being with Obama
and all that racist stuff he did and said, and some of the stuff I'm just seeing, it's like, wow, and Obama chose him. But so it goes to show you where his mindset was and what he was all about. And so one of the things we're going to talk about a little later on, as far as way people frame narratives, even about Black people and, us in America, what we've gone through and our forefathers gone through, actually just what we're descendants of, our, I want to say forefather, but our ancestors, what they've gone through, went through in slavery and all of that,
Well, that was part of what Biden in the crime bill that he helped to frame and push,
right,
was like incredibly harmful for Black people.
And he don't want to acknowledge that.
And we have to hold his feet to the fire.
Exactly.
We got to hold his feet to, like, say no. Like,
exactly.
Like there's something about part of why you call people on stuff is because if you can see where a person's heart is and whether or not they really truly meant to hurt you. If you go to talk to somebody, they go, I ain't do that. Nah. Instead of just saying, hey, wait, so how did you interpret it? That's not at all what I was trying to say. I apologize for that. This is what I actually meant to say. And yes, like these are the facts. And it does look and blah, blah, blah. And because Bill Clinton did that. But the reason why he did it was because people were starting to hold Hillary to the fire.
Exactly.
Like, you was right there with your husband. And so then Bill Clinton had to come out and go, well, we realized we did something wrong. But you knew it way back when you did it. And why didn't you do anything about it when you knew what you were doing? And so anytime somebody backs up a crime bill that's going to put people who are disproportionately affected by the law and you build more prisons because of what has happened. Part of that crime bill gave more money, more, you know what I mean? And so more money was to put more police on the streets, right? 10,000 more cops or whatever the heck it was, and a whole bunch of more prisons and fill the prisons up, because what are the police going to do? They're going to police the same way they've been policing since the 1800s.
That's right.
And so and we need to question those things. We can't just accept people's word just because they say it. Just like I don't accept the things that you say just because of, like, somebody I know and you're cool with somebody I know. Like because I've seen over time for the last 6 or 7 years, however long it's been, that you've been consistent in the way that you have carried yourself. And so that's why I trust you. And so if you say something, I don't need to go. If you say it, I just believe it. And it's not because I just blindly believe it. But just because you got to, and if you bring somebody that you trust, like, there's a certain amount of trust I would give that person, but I'm not going to give somebody the same space in my life that I give you or whatever. I've learned that lesson. That's just, it's not good to do that. People need to be properly vetted, and over time is where you find out. So what is your like feeling about Biden? Where do you sit with him?
I think Biden is a racist. Okay. I mean, I know people are going to say that because if you look back from the 70s on things that he said about reparations and all of that, and defend himself with the crime bill and all of that. My thing is that his thinking is still the same. He hasn't repented. He hasn't demonstrated that he has changed from that, right? And so the thing when we talk about, us as Black people, black in America, is you got to look at those things. You got to look at his history. You got to look at the things that he said, because anytime I have to do something like, I'm going through this foster care process, and they do background check on me. And they don't care if it was 35 years ago when I got arrested, or 40 years ago that I got arrested or convicted of a crime. I got to explain all that, and they hold that against me, right? So we should do the same thing to them. No, man, you don't get no pass because you were with Obama, because Obama don't get no pass. And see, with me, I was critical of Obama, his first term and his second term. Gotcha. And first term, they telling me, be quiet, man. He when he get in the second time, he gonna look out, for the Black agenda, do certain things and all that kind of stuff. But even the second term, he didn't. I know, and people say, oh, well, he had a Republican Congress. Well, he had a Democratic Congress at one time too, and still didn't do anything when it came to Black folks, and didn't want to do anything. So, when you talk about holding people accountable, when you talk about looking at people's track record and so on, Biden, even if you look at him being with Obama, he failed Black people. So why are you going to go with Biden when Obama failed? And so and I know this is not part of the subject, but I just want to throw it in. Some people are trying to, even Bernie Sanders,
Throw it in, that's fine.
the same thing. Sean King out there promoting him and putting out there, we're attacking Biden on some of his past things he voted on, but Bernie Sanders voted on the crime bill too. So and we're gonna get to this. So I want to jump the gun, but and none of them actually want to do anything about reparations or anything on a Black agenda, but yet they want the Black vote, right? And Black people go for it all the time. And so we got to look at these things. So when you talk about mass incarceration, which is the new Jim Crow, as Michelle Alexander said, from the time from getting arrested to being convicted, being on probation, parole, all those things, and having that record and can't rebuild your life after that, or you struggle to rebuild your life, whether it's in housing, whether it's in trying to get education, whether it's in employment, whatever area you want to look at, you find that because of your record, they use it against you, and the plot has always been, or the target has always been Black people, right? And that's why when people talk about passing laws, like, do you know who this is going to impact the most? Black people, not anybody else. And so back then it was the war on drugs, as they always, even from the 70s, they always talked about that. But who did they target? Black people, right? Because when you look at Black folks and white, just look at Black and white, right? They both use drugs at the same rate, about 12 to anywhere between 12, 13, 14%. But look at the people in prison. 33 to 45% of people in prison are Black folks for drugs, right? And so when you talk about using it at the same level, but who's being arrested, that comes from over policing, that comes from targeting Black people. And so people of other communities, and I even heard white people say this, that's honest, say, hey, look, if they were to police my community, where they police the Black community, a lot of my friends would have criminal records. You know what I mean?
Well, so and that's a great segue.
Yeah.
Another place that we see the narrative being switched is in the police department.
Oh, yeah.
We had a prime example of the most recent action where allegedly no police officers did anything wrong, but there's going to be an investigation to find out.
Right.
So
right.
What are you trying to find out if nothing happened?
Right.
Like, that doesn't even make sense. But the fact that the chief would have that type of nerve to say that, and to not even think about how, and some people are saying it's good that he spoke right from his heart and didn't have time to think about it. Because remember, out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth is going to speak. Like, whatever's in your heart is coming out of your mouth eventually. Just give somebody enough time. They're going to say the stuff that they really feel. Right. And so that's a family that you're close to, and a situation that you're dealing with right now. But so how was that narrative changed here? A prime example right here in our own city. Like, how did we see that happen with the chief in that here in the city with the situation with the young brother that Trinell? What was that all about?
Oh, well, it was about Trinell being assaulted by the police and caught on camera, right? And it went viral, them punching him. And so, they have to reframe that narrative, right? Like, no, they were just trying to get him to surrender his hands. Yeah, distraction blows, so they can help him surrender his hands, so they can see his hands. And once they got his hands, they stopped, but I think, the greater problem with that is that Chief Nislight, when he was on news, he said this on TV, that he believed his officers did nothing wrong. But, we're going to have an investigation. You already put that out there. And you talking, I want the public to know. And we talked about this before. When you talk about the public or community, you're not talking about the Black community. You're talking about the white community at large, and so on. And so, but they get away with that, right? Reframing those narratives like that, but here's where I am with that is, I was looking at something from 2014 where a pastor posted a picture of a whole bunch of Black pastors with the mayor. And said, the new, the mayor, blah, blah, blah. And we're looking to do great things with the mayor and so on and so on. But the mayor promotes this junk. Where the mayor hasn't made no statement, has he? He has not said anything, but at least I haven't heard anything. Maybe he has.
Well, you would have heard it if he was.
But I haven't heard anything about Mayor Faulconer saying anything in regards to this, as far as maybe I don't know, maybe he's doing something behind the scenes. I don't know. But the greater problem is that aside from a couple of pastors and clergy who were in some of those meetings with the mayor and so forth, the mass majority are not saying anything. I appreciate people like John Warren, Dr. John Warren, because he said things and called out the mayor. Hugh Muhammad, Minister Hugh Muhammad, he called out the mayor and so on. That was, going to some of those meetings with the mayor. But where the rest of these pastors at that were lining themselves up with the mayor to hold him accountable? To hold him accountable. I'm talking about behind the scenes, come out in public and call him on the carpet or in some kind of way tell him he got to do something, because he's ignoring all of that. But whenever Chief Nitzleit, if you follow on Twitter, whenever Chief Nitzleit posts something about, just hired another police officer, just done something, just rewarded this police officer, he's liking, the mayor is liking it and doing all this other kind of stuff, but he's absolutely silent. Cause I tag him on Twitter when I'm posting stuff all the time about Chief Nitzleit, the things that he's done. But the mayor has not done or said anything. So he supports this. He supports this, and he's always supported, and he has never, ever stood up for the Black community. But yet all these folks align themselves with the mayor. You know what I mean? And so it's ridiculous and it's crazy. So it goes deeper than just Chief Nitzleit, because the mayor holds him accountable. And if he don't hold him accountable, what do they call it? Complicit? Is that the word?
Silence is complicit.
Yeah. Exactly. So he's complicit with it. But when you talk about the narrative, it's out there. He framed that narrative and people are buying into it. And I talked with a producer, somebody, one of the top guys at Channel 10, about what they produced, because they gave me a call. I heard the community was upset about it and so on. And that was my thing, is like, whenever the police say something, you guys just straight up buy it, and run with it. And, of course, they try to say, oh, well, Chief Nitzleit, he calls us all the time complaining about stuff that we post. So you see how, he's behind the scenes, even with politicians. Chief Nitzleit is behind the scenes trying to push his narrative. Even with AB 392, he's behind the scenes trying to push his narrative, trying to force politicians to vote his way. He bullies the media also, but they shouldn't let him bully them. They don't let us bully them. They frame whatever narrative they want to frame out there and so on. So I think that it's very important that we get out there and that we get ahead of things. You know what I mean? Because I've been talking with a few people in media and things like that. And one thing I realized, which I'm always for, is that you got to get ahead of things. What I mean by that is that, like, if an incident happened, don't sit around and wait for the police to come out and do their press conference before you say anything. You do your press conference, get ahead of it, surprise them and get ahead of it and frame the narrative. And then that way, when the chief comes, he's got to defend what you said. He's got to kind of ride on that versus sitting around waiting for him to give a press conference, and then he gives his press conference, he frames the narrative, and then the media runs with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny too. Like when I think about just this whole false narrative stuff and all this really just negligent reporting and just in everything, it really goes to the heart, a heart that truly believes in God, a heart that is really concerned with living a life that shows change, is really a life of honesty and truth. And even if you think about what Jesus said about those who lie, and he said their father is the devil.
Yeah.
He's a father of lies. And if if you lie regularly, if that's your pattern of life, then your father is the devil. Like you are not walking in the light. And it reminds me of what Jesus said to Nicodemus. When Nicodemus was a ruler of the Jews, came to Jesus by night, and it was like, first of all, we know who you are. We know who you are, right? He didn't come to him going, who are you? He's like, we know exactly who you are.
No man can do these miracles.
So we know who you are. And during that conversation, he had a bunch of questions. And Jesus answers him one of the questions by saying, the Son of Man didn't come into the world to condemn the world. He didn't come to do that, but to save. Men are already condemned.
Right.
Men condemn themselves. And here's the condemnation, that men love the lie rather than the truth. Men hide,
In darkness,
and
yeah.
he's so that word light in the Greek is
Mhm.
phos, where we
Mhm.
get the word phosphorus, to light up.
Mhm.
So the ability to see came into the world. So right now, the ability to see came into the world, but you love your darkness and you won't come to the light because you don't want your evil deeds to be exposed.
Mhm.
That's what Jesus told Nicodemus.
Mhm.
And that's the truth that I
Right.
stand on with any chief,
Mhm.
any politician,
Mhm.
any pastor, any
Mhm.
person,
Mhm.
any entity that knows the truth
Mhm.
and won't tell the truth.
Mhm.
It's because you don't want your evil deeds to be exposed,
Mhm.
and you're condemned
Mm.
already, and your father's the devil.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
If
true,
that,
though.
you are a liar,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you need to know that.
Yeah.
Like
Why are we afraid to call people a liar, though? You know, like Chief, you're a liar.
Well, but I don't think there are some people who are not afraid to say that.
Okay.
But I think some people. I mean, I think that there's a million different reasons, but one of the reasons I think is just people not spiritually strong. And so you like, and people don't, maybe some people just don't love truth that way. And I'm not saying like I'm the world's most honest individual. Don't
Well,
get me wrong.
maybe they believe the chief, though,
Well, that could be.
and believe the false narrative that is out there. Let me share some briefly with you in regards to that, because you remember back 2014-15, Justice for SD33, right? And some of the people that we were fighting for, and so on. I had pastors and different people coming to me, bad mouthing these guys. Oh no, man, they deserve what they're getting, and no, man, they you know, whatever it is, these are bad kids or whatever else, you know, they're potential killers and so on and so forth. A lot of that, but I dismissed and argued and dismissed that because they didn't see the greater, they didn't see how the narrative was being framed, and how, you know, you don't just indict a person and they haven't done anything. You know, you don't just call them a murderer and they haven't killed anybody. You know, I don't care who they're associated with or who they know, but because the way the narrative is framed, that's what people, that's what they believe, and that's what they walk with. So a lot of times when you talk about framing the narrative, not only are white people buying into it in other communities, but Black people too.
Well, I think so. A couple of things. I think one, I think people's hearts haven't been converted. I think that's one of the reasons why people love lying, because they're not in the truth.
But it's a lot of the church people.
Yeah, no, but to me,
no,
like,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
if you're not converted, you're not converted.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't love truth is going to love lies,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
they're not.
And they want that money.
And people aren't converted. That was going to be my second point. The second point is people don't want to give up the status that they have. That's the reason why certain clergy in our communities won't say anything, because they're afraid to lose something. It's like, bruh, what do you have to lose? There ain't but like 2 big churches in San Diego. Your church is not a threat spiritually, even to the devil. You know what I'm saying? If you don't knock it off, you got 6 people that go to your church.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about?
You got nothing to lose.
You ain't got nothing to lose. You can't even pay your bills anyway. Like, you probably better off losing what you got going right now, right?
That's right.
And part of the reason why it's not growing, because it's not in truth. And I think a lot of churches are going to start finding this is a good thing and a bad thing. A lot of churches are going to exit. I was talking to a lot of people going to exit from a lot of these churches, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because people need to get from underneath oppressive theology and all that. You need to get away from that stuff anyway. Like, thank God for that, right?
Yeah.
And all truth is God's truth. So my thing is, like, don't tell me not to like promote Black theology and talk about Africa, because Christianity was in Africa before America. Oh, there's churches in Africa that's older than America. Like, get out of here. You know what I mean? And so, but my point is that there's nothing wrong with promoting Africa in the way Christianity, or the way Africa influenced Christianity and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's part of truth. But whenever you start talking about that, people automatically get defensive for the dominant narrative, which is Europeans, as though Europeans are the ones that created Christianity.
Exactly.
But so I think a lot of people are going to leave. But the bad part is where they going to go. That's the bad part. So a lot of people leaving church feeling like the church is irrelevant. And where are they going? They go into these other religions that give them a status and a sense of belonging and power and identity. And that's wrong, and that's bad. And so my thing is like, man, there's nothing wrong. That's why I really love, I always like to give shouts out. There's a podcast called Black Like Me, a brother named Dr. Alex G. Black Like Me is a great podcast. We got brother Adam Coleman, who does True ID. These are East Coast dudes, East Coast brothers. Alex G is in Wisconsin. And you got Pastor Mike, Jamar Tisby, and another gentleman, Jamar's from The Witness. I can't think of Tyler. Jamar and Tyler, they do. So there's some Black theologians that I listen to because they talk about the way spirituality influences the way we see the way the world is, right? And so if we have a European lens, you notice it caused you to like be a lot more docile and a lot more white supremacy is absolutely terrorism. It is, and it's terrorism by itself. But without belaboring the point, but that's sad, man. A lot of people are going to leave, but which is good, but it's also bad because where are they going to go? And so that's why I always like to say, man, I Charity Apostolic meets on Saturdays, 10:30,
11:30 to 1:30,
11:30 to 1:30 at Memorial Park
Recreation Center.
And so that's a place where people can go, and and eventually we'll talk about some other places. I know that Terry Brooks does a lot of good work in the community here. And here's what I don't think we should say. I don't know if we are saying this, but here's what I don't think we should say. I think each person has a particular gifting. And I'm not saying that every single pastor should just come out and talk against the mayor and that because you're not doing that means that you're not being effective. Not at all. But what part are you playing in the grand narrative? Right. That's the thing. That's the thing that I'm saying. So when you look at, and I think we don't do a really.
But some people, and I'm glad you brought that point up because there's some people that choose not to be involved at all.
Of course, and that's wrong.
But here's the thing that I can respect it from the point that if you're not involved at all, you're not even on the good side. You're not up there with the mayor on anywhere. I don't fool with that stuff. It's not good. But
it's better.
At least you're being consistent. Okay, you know what I mean? And you're not playing sides, with that.
Or your side, but your silence could be that you're playing sides. You really. Well, I mean,
I don't. That's why I say I don't agree with it. But at least from the perspective of because there's some people that are silent, but they'll take photo ops with these guys. Whether it's
but see, that's not silence.
That's what I'm saying. But they're silent on one end, and you don't hear them. They ain't calling out the mayor, nothing like that, and all that. They don't endorse him at all. But then you see them in pictures, and those photo ops says a lot.
And that's I think that's to me again like you have to choose a side. That's why Scripture says you can't love God and money. You can't love God and money. You can't want your status.
But money is what drives everyone, organizations and everybody. Whenever an organization is talking about have a certain narrative and movement, they're trying to start, okay, who's funding you now for you to say this and switch up and do this and do that? Because money dictates. I mean, we should, I believe whatever our passions are, we should go for it. And if money follows that, you got to make a living. So amen. But when you allow money to dictate to you what you should be doing, then I think that you're wrong. And a lot of times that's what's happening in a lot of these arenas, even among people we call our allies and so on. And that's why, and I hope nobody will get mad, but that's why even with immigration, you find a lot of these organizations, a lot of people pushing them and saying, y'all forgetting about what's going on right here in America. And worried about that, or that's fine, but what about it? Because that's where the funding and the money and the drive is being pushed, and people want to get out there and want to be seen and so on and so forth. And so when it comes to Black people and when it comes to our needs and the issues that need to be addressed, when you're talking about the Black agenda, Black America and things like that, most of the time, money is not going to come for that. And let me give you an example, because I know it's going to get people upset too. Even when you talk about Black Lives Matter, they've supposed to been for Black men being killed by the police, the mass incarceration and all that. But then it turned into this LGBTQ thing, queer thing, and all this other kind of stuff. I have nothing. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But what happened with sticking with the issue at hand, with people being killed by the police and mass incarceration, which would include everybody. But now you're pushing this thing over here rather than pushing what you should be pushing. Because that's where the money, that's where progressive, that's what they push for.
It's safer.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways it's safer to push a common, it's safer to push a common narrative.
Yeah.
It's safer to do that. And I think one of the things that to really make sure it's clear is that money by itself is amoral.
Yeah,
Money
yeah,
has
yeah,
no
yeah,
feeling.
absolutely.
Money doesn't. So it's the love of money
Body-
that's the root
yeah,
of all evil,
yeah.
right?
Money,
All kinds
money
of evil.
is the answer to all things the Bible says.
Yeah, so and there's not, so and here's the thing, and this again, there's if I would love to be a multimillionaire,
Mhm.
right? But like I'm just not like I'm not going to sell you out
Right.
in order for me to get the money, right? And
Right.
so I tell people all the time, you can't find a person in San Diego that says that I owe them something.
Mhm.
I don't owe anybody any money or nothing. I mean, for my
Mhm.
house I do, but like I don't because I don't.
It's your source of who you're accepting money from. Because when you look at Peter, them at one time they're selling their property, everything, laying the money at their feet, and they was receiving all of that. And of course, they was going to be a blessing to the church. But then Simon the sorcerer came and offered money, and he said, "May your money perish with you."
Well, that's what I tell people. Like, man, I don't like the homework program that I do every month with Pillars of the Community. Shout out to Pillars for like providing space at the spot. It's actually at the spot. I remember to keep saying that Pillars has 2 different buildings that they operate out of. We're in the spot is where we have the program where we have homework. But homework, like I don't make any money off of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just a service that is provided for the community or whatever. And
Right.
I don't get anything from it. And I tell people that like, there's nothing for me to gain. Like no one can buy me because there's nothing for sale. Like
Exactly.
if the program goes away tomorrow, like
Right.
it doesn't affect my bottom line at all.
Exactly.
And if it blows up,
Right.
like my goal is to see a whole bunch of people
Exactly.
Black men and women in the community making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. That would be great to me. I'm not threatened by that. If 100 people can make $80,000 a year, that's $8 million that come back into our community every year.
Mhm.
So like, there's nothing for me to, and that's my point. Like, I don't want to ever put myself in a situation where I have to sell out. And so, shout out to the San Diego County Building Trades that is like come alongside is helping with Tom Lemon and Carol Kim that have helped to really mentor some of these cats. And we're starting to see some results, man.
Mhm.
Thank God, bro. It's starting to be really good. But so my point is that everything we get involved with doesn't have to have something
Right.
attached to it to make us not want to say certain things
Exactly.
or whatever. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
but let me, and so another way that we've seen, let's get to can you see the questions that are, I think, let's just acknowledge a few people real quick. First of all, what's up, Sister Lasser? She said, love y'all. We love you too. You already know that if you're still watching. She says she needs to talk to us. Perfect. I'm always
You
available.
can see all that?
Yeah, I can see it. I blew it up a little bit. What's up, Taisha? Taisha Brown. She said, Jason, what's up, young lady? Chaz Hines. What's going on, Chaz? How you doing, man? Tasha, my sister. What Tasha say? My boy Chaz, that's my guy right there, man. He's went to high school. Which, like, anyway, I don't want to get into. We change the topic, but that's my boy right there. They have to show up for us like they do for others too. I agree. No, that's real. That's real. And hopefully, I think she's talking about the pastors showing up for everybody else, and they need to start showing up. And those are facts. Shout out to Tasha too, man, just because of just the work that she's putting in, man, to run for her campaign for mayor. Still continuing to do, one of the things Tasha said to me yesterday, I thought was kind of, I disagreed with her in a good way. I disagreed with her, but she was like, I really want to keep serving people in the community. Like, that's what I love to do. And I'm saying, no, you got to focus on these other things, but you can tell that when she becomes the mayor, like her heart is going to be for the people. That's what she's passionate about. And so shout out to Tasha, who is a freshman in politics. Though she's not in politics professionally, we kind of had a discussion about the nuance of that or whatever. But shout out to her for that. And thank you for joining us every week too, Tasha. We love you and appreciate you so much. Chaz says, Columbus, Chaz Hines, my buddy from high school. Columbus discovered America. We know it isn't true. Our society still recognizes it. He didn't discover America.
That's
he
right.
came and took over. People was already here.
Yeah.
Somebody already had discovered it when he was here.
Yeah.
Tasha says, the love of money, ego, recognition. Oh, how many followers you have, etc. That's true. That's what people love is recognition. They love the spotlight. That's what Jesus said about the Pharisees, the very religious ones.
Right.
Jesus said, man, y'all love the cheap seats. You love to sit you love to put your perches way up high, and you love to look important, but you're whitewashed tombs. You're just a clean tomb. And he said, man, you travel around the whole world proselytizing. Y'all going everywhere, getting people to convert. And when they do, they become twice the devil that you are. I mean, Jesus was off the hook, boy. Man, Jesus was off the hook. He wasn't. That's why he wasn't walking around with Tom Sins the heart. What's up, Tom? What's up, brother? I tell you, man, just shout out to Tom, man, for really being a mentor. So Tom is a picture taker. That brother he loves to take pictures. And but one of the things that we've all agreed upon with homework is we don't want this to be a spectacle. We're not trying to we don't want to.
But it's important far as the work that everyone is doing. And that's one of the things I'm learning and realizing. You have to be able to archive things. You have to have an archive. You got to be able to collect that data, pictures.
No. Yeah. I'm all for that. Yeah. But what I was going to say was that we don't want to post. I don't want to post these pictures showing the work that's being done behind the scenes. Yeah. We're just not going to do that. But we have like a text thread that he shows me like the men and hopefully, Lord willing, eventually the women that are being mentored through this process to get into the trades. And so shout out to Tom for doing that. There's been I think, and I need to do better at keeping track of records of what we're doing so that we can like report out kind of about what's going on or whatever. But I think so far we've seen about we just did our 5th month. And I think we've seen probably about 60 people, I think roughly 60 people. And I think we have, I'm just going to take a wild guess, man. We probably got 7 or 8 people that have engaged. And I think 3 or 4 that are actually doing work. And the latest one was a gentleman that did almost 29 years in prison and just became a member of a union 2 weeks ago, which is incredible. So shout out to #homework. Really cool. Super, super excited about that. Stephen Peace. What's up, Steve? He said, not just show up, but show up ready to learn the ropes and do what needs to be done. Dreams without actions are just dreams. And that's true. You know what? Somebody said a dream or a goal without a plan is just a wish. So that's a little tidbit. And then Code Tammy, what's going on? Tammy said, declare it. Yes, ma'am. Tasha for mayor. Oh, there's no question. Yeah, let's make no question about it. Tasha got my vote, my support and everything. I love Tasha, period. I love Aramik for the 51st Congressional District. Really proud of Kenya Taylor. Just all the Black politicians that are participating in this. I think it's just really good to see. I think it's good optically. We've got a lot of women that are pushing for these things. I just think the optics of it all is great. Super good to see it. And just the qualities that they'll bring to these spots are really good. So Tom says homework works. These are facts, Tom. I wish we could post some of these pictures, man, so people can see, but we ain't gonna do it. Steven says we have a program at ECC. It is 100% ready for young people to grab the golden ring and get a career, not just a job. These are real careers, making well over $36,000 a year starting, ending years later with a career able to pay over $100,000 a year. So one of the things I've been being asked, and then we're going to finish our last 2 points because we're almost done. And hopefully you guys don't mind us engaging and answering these questions, but we want you to know that we are acknowledging you for sure. Because if you wasn't watching, this would be worthless. So thank you for hanging out with us. But so one of the things that I've been asked a lot lately, right? Homework is starting to kind of get out to the word. A lot of shares are happening with the program. People are sharing it and talking about it. And I've been getting a lot of inbox messages. And for anybody who has inboxed me and they may not see it, because I'm not accepting friends from everybody that sees it and wants to be my friend. I don't really like to do that unless we have a whole lot of people in common. I don't really do that. But one of the things they've been asking is what happens to, and I've got this several times this week. Like I have nephews and brothers or my husband or whatever that needs a job that doesn't have a felony. What do I do? And I was like, shoot, and then I remembered I got a flyer before about these programs that's happening at ECC. And I was like, man, they got a pre-apprenticeship program at ECC. And then there's another program associated with ECC that will, if between the ages of 18 and 24, they even give money for these folks to get their uniforms and the things that they need to get started. And so I want to point folks to the program, to the pre-apprenticeship program at ECC. One of the things that we're lining out in homework now is we're asking folks questions about, do you have any experience in the trades? And if not, that's fine. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have nothing, because if not all of these unions have apprenticeship programs, and they have training that you have to go through, and they'll teach you how to do the job, right? But if you have experience, then you know exactly what you might want to do, and then from there we can get you into some. But ECC has an apprenticeship program that if somebody wants to get into the trades, they can do that. And go to ECC and check it out. Thanks for that plug, Steve. That's amazing. Tony Bruno, that's my boy. What's up, T? He says, we have to finish that question and answer website. This is true. We can target it to a lot of the points and programs you are doing now. That's good. So Tony is a web designer, good friend of mine, man. Excellent brother, man. Love that guy, man. Thanks for joining us, Tone. Known him for a lot of years. Man, we've been in the trenches together. Had a lot of great experience. But so I wanted to put a website together that sort of brings together resources. So like Black San Diego is a place to just talk about careers and jobs, or jobs and events and just whatever. But this would be geared more towards resources for people re-entering society. So any number of things, like where to get a driver's license, and like what about homework? What about other apprenticeship programs? Genevieve, my DA, just sent a flyer out, and I posted it about if you know anybody that is getting ready to go before the parole board on June 8th, they're having there's a lawyer and some people that are going to come to talk about how do you prepare to go before the parole board. And so resources like that will be hosted on this website, so that when people, something happens to a family member, or there's a change in the family or whatever, where do they go to get that information? So we want to create a spot for that stuff to happen. So good. Thanks for reminding me of that, Tone. ECC program is a pre-apprenticeship. Yep. Yeah. Pre-apprenticeship is getting someone ready to go into the apprenticeship, right? Because one of the questions that we ask, and one of the things that's important, there's a few traits or character. There's a few things that people need to have. Well, one of the traits is you got to be willing to work hard. These aren't easy careers. No career is easy that's paying you $100,000 or whatever, and they're going to tell you how to do everything. So that's not what we're doing. But that's why we believe people who are formerly incarcerated that have given a lot are willing to give a lot too. So what Tom's pointing out is that pre-apprenticeship like works on your math and your reading and some of the things that are going to help you in the apprenticeship program, because the apprenticeship is a work and learn as you go. And so if you can get those math skills, that's part of what we ask the folks. We're going to send out a questionnaire every time somebody signs up for our program, and they get the welcome email confirmation for their seat at the table. We're going to give them a questionnaire, and they'll fill out a couple of questions. And one of them is, how is your reading and comprehension? How is that? How is your math? You know what I mean? And then what trades are you interested in? And then we can start pushing people that way while they're waiting to get in. So definitely good. So thanks for the clarification, Tom. Appreciate that. So let's finish up here, because we got about 5 minutes left. We got 7 minutes left on the 7 minutes left on the clock here. So the last topic. Well, we got two things left. Let's hit the last one. Let's hit the last one. I think this is a point that you. Last one. What narrative should Black people be putting first? The Black agenda or abortion rights? So we'll skip the third one. But so what? And is this a question that you submitted? Yeah. Okay. So because I was like, wait, did I do that? No, for real. I was like, which is fine, but I was like, I wonder what made me think of that. Do that. Yeah. So what narrative should Black people be putting first? The Black agenda or abortion rights? Very good question. And we can probably end with that if there's no more questions. But, so what was your? Well, my thing is obvious, but that,
full disclosure, I'm pro-life.
Of course. Sure. Okay.
But because of
a lot of work
that we do is dealing with mass incarceration, police brutality, things that impact the Black
Mhm.
community. And, you know, with that, those who join you as allies are many of the progressives, you know, and many of the progressives, white progressives and white liberals and so on. But many of them are pro-choice or, you know, abortion activists and things like that, you know. And when it was Arizona, Mississippi, there was a few states. The one I remember is Arizona, but I think it was a couple other states too that passed this new legislation in their states. Yeah, it was Alabama passed a new legislation on abortion where they narrowed it down just to a mom's health situation, life-threatening health situations for abortion. And but now this is back on the forefront, and you have a lot of people talking about this abortion, and everybody's jumping on it. Black folks, white folks, everybody's jumping on it, and they will try to tell you pieces if you oppose it.
Okay.
But what I find is a lot of Black folks are jumping on this bandwagon too, where I don't think that's the most important issue Black people should be dealing with and addressing.
Okay.
You know, this road, it's law. You know, even though I'm pro-life, I accepted that that's law, and you know, let's move on. But there are some serious issues. But the thing that I see is that when issues like that come on the forefront, a lot of people jump on that. But then when we talk about things like reparations, when we talk about things like the Black agenda, you know, what are we going to do in this situation to fix the issues of this oppression and discrimination and racism and the structural systems that have been set up against Black folks since Black folks come into America as slaves, and even being free wasn't really free. And, you know, and so a lot of times we lose our focus, or I should say maybe they follow whatever is popular, whatever's narrative is out there. And
they're tossed with every wave.
Yeah, they're tossed every way. Yeah. So all these politicians, Biden, Bernie Sanders, all these, whoever folks are supporting, they're gonna come out and fight for, oh no, we gotta fight for women's rights, you know, on this abortion thing. But then when you ask them about something pertaining to a Black agenda, then they start talking about everybody. Oh, well, you know, the tide all boats rise when the tide rises and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And tend to forget or don't really care about the issues concerning Black people. You know what I'm saying? So the reason why I posed that question is because I think so many times when you talk about framing a narrative, we follow everybody else's narrative rather than staying focused on what our issue is. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm
and I agree. And I'm pro-life too. I've thought a lot about this, right? And people can chime in, and I mean, but I don't think people are, and I could be wrong, but I don't think people are necessarily saying you don't have a right to feel the way that you feel about you. Everybody has the right to feel however you want to feel about abortion. You don't have to agree with it. It doesn't matter. I don't think that's the issue. And I think what the real issue is, at least I think it is the hypocrisy in the laws, right? Like, how do you say, so for one, these same men that passed this law, right, are the same men, a lot of them are old enough, they may not be old enough to be, but they were like their dads. A lot of these men's fathers were the ones who didn't believe that women should vote until 1920, that they were shutting women up. White men, white people were shutting, and these women need to understand that. Why you coming to defend them and all that, understand that these men that you're defending, no matter what, their fathers didn't think that you should have a right to say anything. Susan B. Anthony was jailed, and so these other ones, because of, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton and those, and all. And there was a whole lot of
some of them didn't even care about Black women though.
And Black women, I was just getting ready to say the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated was I love saying that. That's one of the things that they were known for whenever it was helping with the women's suffrage movement. My point is that I think for so long men have dominated women and made women feel, and women were in the same ways about Black men, the same way they felt about Black people to a degree, and women couldn't say nothing. Even when you know, dudes was whistling or saying things to white women and getting in trouble for it,
Mhm.
those same white men would go home and smack their wife
Mhm.
and beat their wife, and the police wouldn't even do nothing. You
Mhm.
could just and I think it's hypocrisy in the things that we love, and
Mhm.
especially when it comes from the church.
Mhm.
That's the part that to me, like, I'm pro-life for sure, but I'm also anti-hypocrisy.
Mhm.
Don't tell me how much you love life, and then people always say, I don't know why you black people are so against, how can you be pro-choice and most of the black people that get aborted, or most of the people that get aborted are black kids and whatever. I'm like, because most of the black kids that get shot by the police proportionately are black too, though. So
Mhm.
don't be so,
Well, yeah.
don't, but you can't be
Yeah.
more concerned about the 36 weeks in the womb
Mhm.
than you are about the 36 years that
Yeah.
the child's on the earth.
Yeah, but I think that that's all a part of it, though, right? And what I'm talking about is that's where we let them have we should stay focused on our issues,
Yeah.
rather than getting caught up in that. And I understand, because for as long as I can remember, been calling that out. How can you be pro-life and you for the death penalty, but but you say you're for life, and so how can you be pro-life, and you want the child to be born, but then you blow them in the head, blow the head
See?
off when they're
See?
15, 16 years old because
See?
they moved wrong.
See?
So I understand that part, but I'm talking about the narrative as far as what is the dominant narrative, what narrative is being framed out there, and
Yeah.
as far as black people. So we have to stay focused and continue to switch that, say, hey, well, because we can jump on all that, but what benefit is that for us when at the end of the day, when we talk about the black agenda and so on? We didn't got caught up in that, and we're fighting for this women lives and all of that, which would mostly benefit white women, not black women. If you want to talk about women per se, when you talk about feminist movement and all of that, there's a great divide in there also, that, and white women fighting for equal
Yeah.
white men. They weren't fighting for equal rights for everyone, even with black men. And you see, they wouldn't talk. They're even with white men, but they don't care about black men.
So what you're saying is stick to, like, no matter how you feel about abortion or not, the issue for us is what are we going to do about leveling the playing field, and
Exactly.
choosing a side on abortion and fighting
Yeah,
one way or
yeah.
another on that can be important, but
Mhm.
what is probably a more important issue?
Right.
Because, like,
We get lost in the shuffle with all this,
and it
that's
just takes
what they want on top of their agenda.
and then when you see the dominant culture pushing this whole idea of everybody has their own choice, choose whatever you want, live however you want to live, that doesn't work for black people.
Right.
Black people don't get to live however they want to live. There's a whole separate code. So
Exactly.
while you standing behind the dominant culture that gets to live however they want
Mhm.
and say whatever they want, talk to the police however they want, and not get shot,
Exactly.
you can't do none of that. So why would you stand with a bunch of people telling
Mm-hmm.
you be lawless? Let's don't even care. To heck with the system. And it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You're gonna get smacked in your head if you do that. So
Exactly.
I get what you're saying. Let's stick to the things that we need to create our own narrative so we can determine in the black community what's important to
Exactly.
us. And if it just so happens to align
Mhm.
with dominant culture,
Whatever,
that's fine
yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly.
But let's at least try to frame our own narrative. Let's get a couple more of these questions. Very good point too. I like that. We got to stay focused.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. Can you get them? You want to read them and talk about it? I don't want to.
First what?
Oh, questions. I didn't know if you could see them or not. ECC,
Okay.
Thomas.
Wait, I gotta go back to, because mine always go down. Okay. Wait, I might went too far. Go ahead.
Tom
read it.
Lemon says ECC is a pre-apprenticeship program.
I think you read that one.
They have partnered. No, they have partnered with Building Trades and are using our nationally approved MC3 curriculum. That right there is. I don't know exactly what MC3 is, but I know that it's good, and I know that it trains you the proper way. If they partner with the building trades,
Mhm.
then that means that their ECC's pre-apprenticeship program is a program that's good enough that will lead you into a trade. And one of the things that's happening and this is what the black community needs to understand and why it's so important to get into these trades. Number one is unions provide good wages, benefits, healthcare in retirement, great retirements. You can live well right now.
Mhm.
All those things, union and prevailing wage jobs and stuff like that. And there's a lot of work coming into the black community, and the more people that we can get that live in the community of District 4, 9, and 8, where that triangle right there, more people that we can get into the trades, the better off. So if you have a felony, come to Homework. You can see it'll be shared in Black San Diego, going to be shared all over. The next dinner is going to be June 26th from 6 to 8 at Pillars
So you
of the
do it like
Community.
once a month.
Once a month, we do it once a month. And then if you don't have a felony, we won't work with you at homework because that's just not the demographic that we're dealing with. But you could go to ECC and ECC will help.
Mm-hmm.
Tammy says it's
taking away the injustice.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, you want to finish those?
It's taking the attention away from injustice, and killing of Black men.
That's
facts.
what
we were just talking about.
Yeah, no, that's facts.
Yeah. And Tasha says, I am for free will. I will help anyone who asks. I jump on all issues, and my campaign is looking at how we can support Blacks, but not all Blacks want reparations as it's being talked about among presidential candidates. God will judge every woman and man for their actions. And then she said something else, but I don't know if you want to say something in regards to.
And you know, I think that there's something about a politician who understands that you serve a diverse group. And I think it's important. Like, we are a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. And so unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, the people get to decide their will. Look at Israel. Look at what God did with Israel. Israel was like, God is saying, do it this way. And Israel's like, we want to do it this way. And God says, fine, and do it your way and watch what happens. So that's okay, Tasha.
But I still think, and this is where it goes back to what we was talking about as far as the Black agenda. All politicians they always got to address all their voters, no matter what race they are. But for us as Black people, we're always left behind and left out. So we got to make sure that people that we support and vote for are going to specifically address our issues of what we're talking about and so on.
I got it.
In regards to that.
Yeah, that's good.
And so then Tasha also said, not Bishop, that's me, not Bishop, but the majority of pro-life people are not, or not Jason either, he's pro-life too, are not opening their homes to these pregnant mothers. Some churches are not opening God's house to these pregnant mothers and stand with them for 18 years.
I told a pastor, I was meeting with a good friend of mine. We're just talking about this whole issue in the churches. You see a lot of these, some people, anyway. And my thing is, a better way, I think, to address this issue is, instead of standing out in front of abortion clinics and saying,
I'm not for that.
You're going to hell, or God hates you, or whatever the heck. And most people don't say that, but there are some that do. But just to make this point, I'll use the extreme example. God, my thing is, what if we stood out and said, hey, you know what? You don't have to do what you're doing. Like, I don't know what your situation is, but you can live with us. We'll help you raise the baby so you can finish school and do whatever. Like, to me, that's a more godly example. Hey, however you feel about this or whatever, like, if it's just a matter of support and you just, you're what. So I think if we did create environments where folks, and that does happen a lot, believe it or not, it happens a lot. There was a church way up in Simi Valley called Cornerstone. I think it was called, I don't know if it was Cornerstone or not, but Francis Chan's, he used to pastor this church up north in Simi Valley. And he said, wherever county they were in, his church had pushed so hard for adoption that they cleaned out the county's adoption board. There were no more kids available for adoption. And I think that's a more godly example. If you're against something, then you should also be, you should be willing to support the consequences if people do stop doing what you say you disagree with, right? You know what I mean? So I agree with that, Tasha. That's good. Most of the kids being aborted are white, and because more white people get abortions.
That's because there's more white people, but when you look at the per capita, black people, 28% blacks.
I don't know, and I don't know stats.
And it's way lower for whites when you look at based on the race and proportion in that race.
Yeah, and not to perpetuate this to go too far over our hour, but Susan Verlin said, she posted, I think it was earlier this week, she posted something on her that says, one of the things, and I didn't check the stats to see if I don't even know how you would tell this or whatever, but she was saying that white people don't encourage their loved ones to get abortions because it's really about numbers. and about getting more numbers or whatever to maintain the power and stuff. And I was like, wow, that I mean, it makes sense. It doesn't mean it's true just because it makes sense. But,
right.
Remember that we can't be lazy listeners. What was it? I think we got 2 or 3 more questions that we're gonna or comments that we'll get done. Tammy has one too. An injustice to one is an injustice to all.
Who said that?
Tammy did, for sure. Okay. Those are facts. That's very true. All these issues are our issues. They affect us all as people. There's no doubt. This is another human rights violation. Yeah.
What's a human rights violation?
So I'm not 100% sure because we don't see the comments as we're talking. People typically will comment on something as we're saying something. Okay. So yeah, sorry about that, Tammy. I don't know how to elaborate on that. I don't want to assume anything. And Tasha says, "I'm not all politicians, girl. You I know that. You know what I'm saying? I know.
I said that. I didn't say. I said politicians. They, most time they addressing all issues and so on. Yeah. But far as us as Black people framing the narrative, we got to stay focused on our issues, regardless of.
And that's what Tasha says. Tasha says, "I'm not all politicians." She says, "I'm a Black woman, and who will not leave Black people behind." Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen historically that Black women are the only ones that won't leave Black people behind. You know, when it's all said and done, Black women are those. And so, Jason, that right there, help. Help. She's saying help. Yeah, stop saying, quit saying I'm against something, and then but you ain't gonna do nothing to help. You know what I mean? Stop that. Tammy says, why aren't we talking about why men's rights are being attacked as it relates to it? So somebody said, you ought to make. So here's my thing too. Somebody said this too. A man gets a woman pregnant. He's able to walk away and never take care of the baby per se. And nobody says nothing about. There's no consequence per se.
Yes, there is.
But why not?
There's no. They can't come with that because yes, it is. They hold you accountable if they can catch up with you. Unless you run and hide.
So, but my point is the immediate consequence, the lifelong consequence belongs to the woman and not to the man. The lifelong consequence of caring for the child, even if the man does provide child support, that still doesn't help to raise a kid. And that's all the dude has to do is just give a little bit of money. Depending if he got a good job, he can do that. And there's no work being done to help raise the baby, and all the responsibility for that child is on the woman, and all the consequences for the decision that she wants to make. And that's what I'm saying. For me,
I don't know. I know that there are scenarios where that happens and stuff, but I think that's not true to a certain degree because when you look back, and part of the problem, even with welfare, was the father couldn't be around. You know what I mean? And so that's something that most definitely was created by the government because the family has always been a strong Black family unit until you see like in the 60s and going to the 70s with mass incarceration and all these other different type of things that started happening with the Black man and so forth. And I think, if you can eliminate the Black man, you can eliminate the Black family. So when you talk about Black fathers being present and being there and so on and so forth for that child, yes, we have to hold everyone accountable, the father, the accountable and so on. But I think as far as when it comes to support and the father being there for support, because you could be an absentee father, but yet supporting financially, and you can be a deadbeat dad, not supporting and be both absentee and deadbeat. But I think as far as at large, most men want to be there for their child and put every effort to be there for their children. Most men, not some, there's some that don't. And that's why, like with me, and I'm sorry, just get mad at me. I think the bigger problem is, and that's what I addressed in one of my videos is that we have a sexual immoral society as a whole, where people just want to have sex and don't want to deal with the consequences that comes behind having sex. And if we more so think more morally right, in the sense of before you have sex, you get married, you won't have a lot of these problems. I know people say, oh, that's old school, but that's the way God designed it and set it up. And the father will be there because he married her, and the both of them are in that family unit, and they're going to be there to take care of their children.
And I think
you're going to have those struggles, but I think a lot of our problems that we have is because of sexual immorality.
And I don't think there's a denial in that. I mean, if people were committed to having families before sex and talked about long-term family stability and stuff like that, because if not, what happens with broken families that start off broken and damaged, then what happens is the same man in the dominant culture that creates a welfare system that promotes the man not being there is the same one that comes around the back end and creates a law that says if you get an abortion, you're going to jail. So now we're going to deal with the front end and we're going to get you in the back end. And so my thing is the way to get a, but at the end of the day, we got hypocrites making these laws and we need to quit that. So, but anyway, we're well over our time by 15 minutes. Yes, you guys are amazing. Thank you for hanging out with us. We cannot answer any more questions because we'll be here another 45 minutes, but we love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Like and share the videos. Please feel free to send the bishop and I comments or questions or things that you want us to talk about. Eventually we will get to the point where we can have it maybe at a different location. And we want to start inviting guests and just start talking to community. We really do want to do that, but it's a matter of organizing it. So if we can get someone that would love to help us organize that, that would be good. We would love to have other community members, and we just want to have regular community members that these things are affecting them. We don't have to have professionals or we want to have those too, but we just want to have regular, and we want to go out into the streets and talk to folks too and ask questions. So if you guys would want to be a part of it, this is really like a discussion about Black people. It needs to have Black people in it. And so we want to do it. We just don't have the time to really build it the way that it needs to be built. So if you want to help, we're open to do that. So amen. Any parting words, my friend?
Just keep on watching and spread the word for what we're doing, and get involved, become active, and so on. And we got to change our thinking. We're like we're talking about with the progressive movement, especially among Black people. We don't have the same benefits as white people have, but we try to do what they do and follow their movements, and that is hurting us. And we got to start thinking among ourselves about how we're going to move forward and address issues that are going to strengthen us and strengthen the family and strengthen the community. Yeah.
Well, and my last word is, if you always do what you always done, you're going to always get what you always got. If you always get what you always got, you're going to always be what you always been.
And I'm
sanity. And you're going to always get what you always got. Why? Because if nothing changes, no thing changes.
Exactly.
Peace. Farewell.